This is an India Today Global exclusive. I'm being joined by Dr. Mohammed Yunus, who is a Bangladeshi social entrepreneur, banker, economist, but most widely known as a Nobel laureate. Dr. Yunus, thank you so much for joining us here on India Today Global. We are beginning to discuss the situation in Bangladesh today, and that has to do with the political climate with regards to the protests that have taken place in Bangladesh. Students coming out into the streets, quota becoming a huge issue, quota for families of veterans, certainly reserving 30% of government jobs for relatives of veterans did not go down well for those who are seeking employment, those youth who are seeking employment in Bangladesh. For someone like you who's been so involved in microfinance, economy, employment generation, what's your reading of the political climate right now in Bangladesh?
Well, I'm very worried looking at the situation. Students dying, people dying, bullets from the army, from the police, from paramilitary. That's not the kind of country that we would like to live in. We want to see a peaceful country. We were promoting that everybody's safety is a priority for the government. So the government has failed to ensure that, rather it went into shooting spree and killed lots of young people and students, non-students, even youngsters, as young as 4-year-old, 10-year-old, and so on. So this is not the way a country is expected to run. And it's a country, the government is supposed to protect people's lives. That's the image of any government. It's a protector of the lives of the people in the country. When government becomes killer of the people, then the basis of governance doesn't exist anymore. So this is a situation we are going through, and for days it's going on, and we don't know how long it will take.
What do you think the impact of this is going to be on the economic stability of Bangladesh? Because of all the countries in South Asia, in the neighborhood, we see Bangladesh do quite well, that they have shown not just stability, but also tremendous growth. How do you see this, the protests, the situation, the political turmoil really impact economic stability within Bangladesh?
Bangladesh is an amazing country. It has achieved so many things in so many directions in terms of addressing the poverty situation, addressing the health situation, addressing the people's lives improvement, and so on in general, in building up a new economy completely. So it's a lot of things on the list. But that doesn't need to lead into shooting people for making some demands on the government, for establishing their views and so on, and drawing people's attention. So that's the kind of thing that we don't want to see in a country which is doing so much good for the people.
Well, Dr. Yunus, it's known the problems that you've had with the Sheikh Hasina administration and regime. You're also not so long ago, actually about 6 months ago, were sentenced to 6 months in jail for allegedly violating labor laws. How do you interpret actions of the Bangladeshi administration, and keeping that in context, the criticism that we're seeing of Sheikh Hasina administration when it comes to the situation on the ground, but more so when it's coming from you, it also comes from a place where we do know that the two don't see eye to eye.
That shows what kind of government we are having in our country. I don't have to explain the basis of those charges against me. It's not the new one. I'm under attack for the last 20 years for one reason or another. Some of them very, very sharp attack, including attack for now the present cases are against me on money laundering, on stealing money from the companies and so on. So this is a list of horrifying allegations against me, and I'm to appear in court every month, twice every month, and two different kind of charges. One on charges of money laundering and so on, and other one is on charges of labor lawyers.
Yes. But Dr. Yunus, will you be traveling to Bangladesh? Do you actually travel to Bangladesh for these court hearings, or have you stayed out of the country to stay safer?
I'm here in Paris right now, attending the Olympic Games. I was invited by the International Olympic Committee, but I normally live in Bangladesh. That's where I live. That's where I work. Now I'm attending the Paris Olympic in Paris.
You will be attending the court hearings against you.
Maybe I'll be missing one or two.
Okay. The larger perspective over here. We've seen in the recent past, Dr. Yunus, there has been quite a bit of criticism that has come Sheikh Hasina's way. There are raised concerns with regards to human rights violations, democratic backsliding in Bangladesh. What is your assessment of the situation when it comes to democracy in the country, in your country?
Well, democracy needs a fair election, transparent election, which we didn't have. And it needs freedom of speech. It needs rule of law. It needs security of individual citizen in the country. So those things do not exist. So this is the problem, and also independence of judiciary, as we see in Bangladesh, absence of it. And also see lots of corruption, like even if you look at the former chief of army is involved in huge amount of corruption. Mm-hmm. Former chief of police, very ugly way of corruption that he has indulged in. It's all it's in the press, but we don't see much caution is taken on corruption in the civil service, corruption everywhere. So it's not a very convenient place for flourishing democracy.
Well, from India's perspective, Dr. Yunus, if one looks at it, what are the options? If not Sheikh Hasina, Khalida Zia. For India, security has been a concern every time Khalida Zia has been in power. Do you think Khalida Zia can actually be an answer to the problems that Bangladesh faces? Economics aside.
I don't think we should be talking about individuals. We should talk about principles. Mm. We should have fair and transparent election. We should have democracy, just like any other country could expect. So that was missing. The important thing is the practice of democracy, and beginning with an election. So I'm recommending that all these problems that we are facing right now, the medicine for curing all these problems is going to have a fair election. So we should have a fair election, transparent election as soon as possible. It's not about who comes into power. Whatever decision made by the people, the people are the owners, the people are the principal factor for the country. So they should decide who they want. This election is the process by which democracy produces those results. So we should go in and decide that. Right. Even in a mature democracy like the United States, suddenly Biden disappears from the consideration, somebody else comes up. It's up to the people to decide which candidate they should be voting for and want them to run the country.
Well, but do you not see a growing influence of the West when it comes to Bangladesh and Bangladesh's internal issues? We see a lot of criticism for Sheikh Hasina, but also the need and want to oust the Bangladeshi premier. In such a scenario where others are looking at their own strategic interests, what would be in Bangladesh's interest?
I should say that, yes, people should be interested in Bangladesh politics, what's happening there. Bangladesh is a very small territory, 150,000 square kilometers. But with 170 million people, it's a tightly packed country. And if you don't have a place where people live their life peacefully, if you push them to go into violence, that violence will not be limited within Bangladesh. So you have to be very careful about that. And 50% of the population are under the age of 25. So they're a very young population. And if they are very unhappy, it will spill over to other countries. It will not be limited to this country. And it will be East India will be spilling over the difficulties. And there's Myanmar, which is having a very difficult time in the northern part of Myanmar. Their shells keep coming to Bangladeshi soil right now. And all these things, and at the same time, there are a million Rohingyas sitting right there in Bangladesh. So when things become difficult, people will be running around all directions. We are already known as termites. If these termites start running around, it will be creating very difficult situation. So I would say let the people, 170 million people, live peacefully with peace and guaranteed democracy and practices of democracy, so they don't really disturb that democracy. I think it's good for everybody. For international community, they don't want to get involved with the chaotic situation or even volcanic eruption in Bangladesh in some way. So to avoid that, the best security is to bring democracy, untainted democracy, unqualified democracy as soon as possible. So we need an election as soon as possible. A transparent election as soon as possible.
Well, I see, Dr. Yunus, you use the term "I jibe," so I will have to ask you a question which is more bilateral in nature. When the protests were taking place, Mamata Banerjee said that those who are fleeing are welcome to come. It became a huge issue over here. We know everybody's playing politics when it comes to the situation, but it did not go down well with Bangladesh, and they protested, saying that Bangladeshis might be welcome, but these are protesters who are standing against Sheikh Hasina. So in such a scenario, how do you see the politics play out between India and Bangladesh, two very close neighbors, but have had an issue when it comes to people coming in from Bangladesh? And I'm not going to say whether it's right or wrong, but yes, the use of language certainly is something that can be objectionable.
Sure. I'm always promoting the idea of SARC. I'm a great promoter of SARC. I think that's our best framework that we can live together. We should be encouraging each other to follow rules, principles, and so on. How to practice our democracy in our own country, how to independence of judiciary, rule of law. So we learn from each other, and we should compete with each other on this. And I would like Bangladesh to be a champion country in democracy, in rule of law, in transparency, and personal freedom, freedom of speech. So that will be the spirit in which we should be growing up together as a family. So that's the direction we've gone. But if you differ from that, you get into massive problem, like some of them you just mentioned. It's an endless thing. If you start accusing each other, if you start finding faults with each other, this is a non-ending road. You cannot build peace on that. Peace is only solution where we, as I said, is a framework of SARC is a good framework, and we could be similar to European Union, visiting each other, not feeling constrained by any kind of impediments on our relationship.
Right.
So we should be promoting that in that kind of direction. Otherwise, the other kind of relationship will take us into the direction which gets worse and worse. It doesn't improve. That's why I'm saying that if you open that up, that is a journey, unending journey. It's a very violent journey. We don't want to go into that violent journey. When we see the failure of democracy within the country, I worry about that. The region would be engulfed into that. It's an eruption of violence can go any direction. The seeds of those things are already there in that region. So let's not encourage those things to erupt. And on the basis, instead we should build the edifice of the peace and good relationship with each other.
Right. Dr. Yunus, in 2007, you had launched a political party, Nagrik Shakti, and then you abandoned the idea and your political plans a little later. Would you call yourself a politician today? Would you consider, or do you have any political ambitions? Do you have any political ambitions at this point in time where you think you could actually change things in Bangladesh?
I have no such intention of doing anything or changing, making political things for myself. I'm a just ordinary citizen trying to do things that I think I can do, help solve problems. I try to look at the problems and try to solve it as a piece, not as a politician making rules and governing the country. That is far, far from a man. I'm a very simple citizen. I want to be helpful to people. In small segments and not in a national way. But I have ambitions in the sense that I would like to see a SARC kind of framework emerges. This is my own personal thing. And we give the responsibility of running the country, designing the country to the young people. I think old generation should stay out and let the young people take over and lead the world, lead the country, their country. I think they will do a much better job than our older generation that we have done, either in economy or in running the country and formulating the policies. Today's generation is much more capable than the older generation of political leaders, business leaders, and others.
Well, which is what I was coming to. My final question, Dr. Yunus, to you is, what do you envisage for your country in terms of a vision? And for the future of Bangladesh, how do you see the future, the coming generation, the next generation really ensure that Bangladesh flourishes?
One, to create the setting for that, we'll have a transparent election so that people can choose freely, fairly, without any fear, without any kind of restrictions from any side or anybody threatening them for anything. Completely joyous mode, go and elect the person he or she likes freely. So this is one condition I think is very important for us. And we want, on the democratic practices side, we want to be number one in SARC countries. We want to be number one in terms of promoting the youth and leading the country. And they have the capacity to do that, so I encourage them. And I promote a new kind of business called social business to solve problems rather than make money for themselves. I also promote the idea that this civilization that we are passing through is a wrong civilization we built, which is based on profit maximization. We should be building a new civilization, which is based on human values of sharing and caring. And I want to start the practice in see this happening in Bangladesh, in SARC countries beginning. And there are lots of people who are really enthusiastically support that idea. And we are doing that on the ground peacefully to make that happen. So this is the kind of direction we want to have, creating a new civilization of brotherhood and civilization of sharing and caring, civilization of reaching things that we have never done before, making life enjoyable for everybody rather than some people were left out and wealth concentration goes in one direction. All the wealth, most of the wealth goes to few people in the top, and the remaining people remain to very small share of that wealth, very little or none of that share. We don't want to continue with that kind of system. So we need a new system that we are looking for. That's what I encourage the young people to look into, and they feel excited about it. They want to do that. And we talk about creating 3-0 clubs, zero net carbon emissions, zero wealth concentration, zero unemployment, and those kind of. These are my job. This is what I do. I'm a kind of person who try to inspire people to build a new life for the all people.
Dynasty politics and nepotism.
I look at the democracy. I don't go into the details of what is wrong. I talk about what is right. That everybody has a right to be free and choose their representative without fear, without favor, and feel in a joyous mode, electing their representative, whoever I see the fit person. So I should not be under compulsion or under pressure or under threat to go one way or another, or don't go to the polling booth at all, because I'm afraid to go to the polling booth.
Are you engaging other world leaders, governments, to talk about Bangladesh, to talk about democracy, transparency in Bangladesh, and the concerns that the world really has today with regards to your
I do it all the time. I do it all the time. Whatever concerns me, I tell people how I feel about it, not only in Bangladesh, globally. There are many other hot spots in the world. I talk about it. So whatever I see, I feel wrong, that it should not be done. It should be done differently. I'm very vocal in explaining to the leaders of the nations and so on. And luckily, I have access to many important people in each country. So I try to inspire them to go in the right direction, how to make sure we build a new world. It's not just caught into the details of little things here and little things there. The very framework has to be changed. That's my goal. And in that framework, I see democracy is the only framework we have, so that we can feel safe. The other framework doesn't give me that safety and freedom of speech and rule of law, independence of judiciary, and all the good things that we have been talking about all the time, but don't practice it much. And create an economy which can be shared by everybody with social business and giving. I talk about young people not to go for job. Job is a wrong idea. It's a traditional. Is in the tradition of slavery. Why should anybody be slave to take orders from somebody else? All human beings are born as entrepreneurs. So I blame the financial system. Why don't you design the financial system so that finance is available? Because finance is the oxygen of entrepreneurship. So if I have the oxygen, I go right ahead and become an entrepreneur. I don't have to send job application and take a slavery as my future. So those are the kind of things I promote, and I hope the new education system will be education system where we will not be producing slaves to take jobs and use the rest of their life taking orders for somebody else. I said that's the most disgraceful thing a human being can do. The real thing, you're a treasure. You are source of unlimited capacity to do things for the whole world.
That's a very positive take, Dr. Yunus. Why take up a job when you can be an entrepreneur? On that note, Dr. Yunus, on that positive note, on that hopeful note that there will be more employment, but more entrepreneurs coming in from Bangladesh. Thank you so much for joining us here on India Today Global. Indeed,
thank you. Thank you.